Good evening and welcome to the Cabarrus County Board of Education's budget work session for Monday, March the 28th, 2022. We will say welcome to those of you who are joining us live stream, and I would ask that all that are here stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Blackwell, a second by Ms. Carpenter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And this meeting is dedicated to our budget presentation, so we will ask Ms. Herndon if she will join us at the podium. Good evening.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for the opportunity to present our local budget recommendation to you. This is a very big honor for me because I'm actually bringing to you the recommendation of hard work by our budget committee, which actually started back in the fall of 2021. So while our budget committee meetings didn't begin until February, there was a lot of pre-work that took place leading up to the ability to have those conversations and ultimately summarize a budget and bring in front of the board. And that work is so important that we've carved out time in 3 different Board of Education meetings tonight, Monday, April the 4th, and Monday, April the 11th, when we hope that you will be able to adopt our local budget to present to the county, that we want to make sure you have enough time to hear the committee's recommendation, to ask questions, for me to go bring back additional information if needed or requested, and really give our budget the amount of time it deserves. In this school year, we are managing on behalf of the board a total budget of $434 million. Of that budget, $126 million is from our local county government, and that's a combination of what they fund us for our operating expenses and also for capital outlay. So we're talking about large buckets of money, and I'm proud to be able to share with you what the committee has worked on. But before we get to the specifics of the budget, I would like to share some context because I think it's important. I live in this work every day, so this information is secondhand for me, but you all don't get to be in this information every day, so I want to make sure and provide you as often as I can with context that will help you understand the broadest picture, and then as we narrow down the information as it relates specifically to our local budget. So I get this question a lot from folks that aren't familiar with public education funding, and that is, where does your money come from? And so in this first chart, you'll see, and it's not a surprise, that the majority of our funding comes from the state of North Carolina. But I want to point out, too, that we are very lucky. Our county, Cabarrus County, is very gracious and funds about 30% of our total revenue. That's a substantial investment in our school district, and I don't know exactly our ranking, but I am certain that we're in the top 15 districts in the state of North Carolina with regard to the support that we receive from our county. So it's very important that we put together a meaningful budget recommendation and request to them because of the level of funding that they provide for our students. I'll also highlight with regard to our revenue and where it comes from. You'll see on here that our federal funding is about 14%. That's higher than you may have seen in previous years, and that's because of the generous ESSER funding and pandemic relief funding that we are receiving. And if you look at this next chart, I've excluded those ESSER funds, and you'll see a more normalized federal funding percentage of about 4%. That's what we saw historically before the pandemic and all the relief funds that came with it. So that'll help you get an understanding of where our funding comes from. Equally important is understanding how do we spend our money. And this also probably doesn't come as a surprise, but it's a big number. More than 80% of our expenditures relate to salaries and benefits. much of which is not controlled by us as a district. Salaries for our certified staff, our teachers, our instructional support personnel are mandated by our state, and in different ways. If you have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a more advanced degree, your years of service. So very little of that salary and benefit spending do we have discretion over. And it's a large chunk of our expenditure budget. You'll see the other items that we spend money on, whether it's supplies or contracted services, but by far and large, our focus is on spending towards our salary and benefits in a way that is compliant, fair, and competitive with the marketplace. This slide I put in there because it is important to know, and this is never a perfect formula, but traditionally in public education in our state, it has been the state of North Carolina's responsibility to take primary focus around funding salaries and benefits. And then they leave the non-salary and benefit funding to the county. And you can see that makes sense on this chart because this is just a summary of our local expenditures, and you'll see that salary and benefits comprise only 55% of our local expenditures. And so that helps me feel good about and should help you feel good about the fact that our local government, while they do fund some salary and benefits for us, we couldn't do school the way we do it. And oh, by the way, in a district that does it very, very well with commendable scores and progression by our students, we couldn't do it without some help from the local government from a salary and benefits perspective. But they do fund things that the state will not fund for us, whether it's capital outlay or technology, supplies, any type of curriculum that supports instruction. They're able to pitch in when the state is focusing on salaries. So I think that most of you are aware of the fact that our board and our district outsources the development of the annual local budget recommendation to the budget committee. This is a process that's been in place for many, many years and is very inclusive and diverse with regard to perspectives and stakeholders that come to the table. And so we're going to just walk through at a very high level the budget development process and the different players that were involved as we put together our local request for 2022-2023. This is just a snapshot, the base of this pyramid being where it all starts, and this is the work that I described to you that began in the fall of 2021, and we involve our school advisory teams at the school level, and we gather them at each school in a room, and they talk about their needs and their desires and their wants and their expectations for the budget process. Those types of conversations also take place here at the Ed Center and at our ancillary district office building locations to make sure not only our school voices are heard with regard to budget needs, but also our district office voices are heard as well. We summarize all of that for a first pass, yay or nay, through Cabinet to make sure that they're aware of the requests that have bubbled up through the first couple of layers. And we have conversations about that at the Cabinet level, and we align around what has been presented to us, and then we turn that over to the Budget Committee, and the Budget Committee has 5 meetings. It's a very large commitment of a group of about 35 folks that are passionate about serving our students, and their work begins with meetings in February and ends in March. So it's 5 fast-paced conversations in a very short period of time with a lot of information shared, and the expectation that there's participation by the members, not just being talked to, but playing in the process as well. And then that comes back in the form of a recommendation from the Budget Committee. We go back through Cabinet and Dr. Kapicki and make sure that we're aligned around the request, and that leads us to this presentation and conversation tonight. So a lot of work, a lot of months, a lot of people involved, and pretty both impressive and overwhelming process. It is by far the most inclusive budget process that I've been aware of, either in the private sector where I grew up or in the time that I've been in public education. So I was very blessed that I was able to not only facilitate the process, but learn about the process all at the same time. And that was a bit daunting to me at the outset, but it actually worked out really good because I could come into the process with a fresh set of eyes. And so I probably asked questions that hadn't been asked before, and I think it stimulated, at least in the group that managed this the closest within the finance department, had us thinking of things perhaps a little bit differently. So I really enjoyed the process. I learned a lot, and this is not the time, because I can't formulate my thoughts into a recommendation until I get this approved and in front of the county as an official request. But I do want to come back to Dr. Kopicki and Cabinet, and ultimately to the board, and share my thoughts and ideas about the budget committee work going forward. So stay tuned for that. That'll be later in the summer when all of this is behind us and I can think clearly from a process improvement perspective. But an awesome experience. Just at a high level, and I'm certain that you've seen this information before, but this is a lot of words that basically say to me, a budget committee is a collaborative effort of individual and different stakeholders that are coming together for the common good of developing a local budget that best serves our students. And so the expectation is that people play and participate and listen and push back respectfully if necessary, so that, again, instead of being lectured to, they are involved with the creation of our budget recommendation. This is our committee members for the 2022-2023 budget committee process. You'll see we have board members that are on the committee. We have folks that are within our district, cabinet level folks, school administrators, teachers, community members. We have folks from the county that participate. It's a great parent representation as well. It's a great diverse group of folks that care about our students and about our district. And it was great to see a high level of participation from all of the committee members, meeting after meeting after meeting. And again, 5 long meetings in a very short period of time could have people check out, but we really did not see a lot of that, and it was really gratifying that folks were dedicated to this work. I have to give a special call out to my finance team, which includes a non-finance person that we have adopted, Amy Lauder, and I'll say more about her. She may be here. There she is. There she is. I wanted her to be here. Such an instrumental part of this work year after year, and she does it with such grace and such expertise, and pushes people to make decisions when we get stuck, but does so in a way that is supportive and inclusive. And then on my team, Kim Aldridge, Valerie Cooper, and Lisa Mundell, they have spent just countless hours on this work since the fall of 2021, and I'm just super proud of their work and their patience as I walked in the middle of all of that with a million questions, and they were gracious in helping me find my way through this process as I tried to play and facilitate and learn all at the same time. But a great group and a big group of folks that are committed to putting forth the best budget recommendation that we can. I think it's always important to remember that when we're doing anything as a district, whether it's a strategic plan or a budget development, we need to use our articulated mission and vision as a filter for all decisions and conversations that we have, because this is where our student shows up. And we talked about the fact at the beginning of every budget committee meeting that we needed to be student-centered and student-focused. And while sometimes I felt like the committee may have considered that a redundant conversation meeting after meeting. I just felt like it was important to ground us every time around what we're here to do. And I think personally that using the mission and vision, which are student focused and student centered, is a great place to make sure that we filter all of our budget decisions through. We have used for many, many years a decision-making tool. We call it the Trigo tool. This is the official terminology, and this is where, in addition to being a great partner in general, Amy Lauder is our district expert on the Trigo process, and so she was able to navigate that many committee members around a process, the Trigo process, to make the decisions that ultimately resulted in the budget that we're going to walk through for you all. And it's really predicated on a list of agreed upon budget objectives. So these budget objectives were actually agreed upon by last year's budget committee, and we dissect those at the end of each process each year, and if we need to tweak them or look at the weight of each of the objectives, we do that in preparation for the next year's process. So this is a very interactive piece of the budget committee process as well. And you'll see the top one is, does it comply with laws and policies? If the answer is yes, you keep going. If the answer is no, there's no more conversation about it. And then you'll see in the other objectives that are listed here, the different ways we analyze each budget funding opportunity. And it's everything from, does it protect our children's health? Does it help them from an instructional perspective? Is it equitable across all of our student populations? And you'll see the different items here. And then the weights are established by the budget committee as to what is most important in serving our students. So we're going to now go from a broader picture and start to narrow in on the budget recommendation that we want to put in front of our county. That will be on April 15th, just a few short weeks away. And we're going to talk about this in a couple of different buckets. Number one is our continuation budget, which is simply what funding do we need to continue to do what we are already doing? So no new programs, no new initiatives, but what will it take to fund what we are doing right now? That's our continuation budget. Then we're going to talk about our expansion budget, which is where we will have new initiatives, new efforts, new programs, new curriculum to consider, and what we are going to request in that regard. And we break that down into 3 buckets. We summarize our technology expansion needs, our operational expansion needs, and our facilities and maintenance department operational expansion needs. And then finally, we'll summarize our capital outlay needs. So I know this is a lot of information on a chart, so I apologize for that. I'm going to spend a little bit time going through our continuation request because it does total right at $5.3 million, so I want you to understand the pieces underneath that. The first 2 lines are a budget request, a provision in our expansion budget that will allow us to pay our locally paid, certified, and classified staff at the level of mandated increases that the state passed as part of its biennium budget for 2022-2023. So you all know the state gives us money to fund those mandated increases just for our positions that are state funded. We want to make those increases available to all of our certified and classified staff, so we have to have a provision in our local budget that says we want to give our locally funded staff the same mandated increases that our state-funded staff are receiving. So you'll see that that is 2.5% for certified staff, and this is year 2 of the biennium budget that was passed in late November 2021, and it was set for school years 21-22 and 22-23. Now, the General Assembly will have to gather and say, yes, we're going to continue in year 2 as we planned. Nobody expects that not to be the case because the biennium budget wasn't approved until so late. We would imagine that they would have hashed out any concerns about year 2 of that biennium budget when they approved the whole thing back in November. So they'll have to gather and say, yes, no changes, move forward as originally approved, but we don't have any indications from the Department of Public Instruction or anywhere in Raleigh that won't be the case. So we will plan to give a 2.5% increase, average increase to our certified staff, and you'll see the cost of that is about $104,000, and we will pass along a 2.5% increase or a move to a minimum salary of $15 per hour for our classified staff. Again, both provisions outlined and mandated at the state level, and this would just be the cost associated with doing that for our locally funded staff. The third line item relates to our classified staff, so our non-certified or our non-teaching staff. We've had some brief conversations, and Dr. Bish and I talk about this just about every day, and we're excited to partner together to look at our classified salary scales. Right now, and just as a reminder, the Department of Public Instruction does not create classified salary scales. They articulate a minimum and a maximum, and they let LEAs develop the scale between the two. And because of the way the state adjusts its minimums primarily, there's a lot of compression between the steps. So the salary increases between a step 0 and a step 1 are minimal. And so we always like to have a provision for our locally funded and our state funded folks as well to make sure that we ease that compression a bit. And you'll see that that's about a $253,000, almost $4,000 request. I put this next line item in here because we need to keep it in front of us as a board and as a district. We are paying our teacher supplements at 12%. Our county currently has it budgeted at 10.5%, which for right now is okay because we made a commitment to pay at 12% through the end of June 2024 using our ESSER funds, and we've talked about that before. So we're okay right now. I'm not worried about how we will fund that next school year, but June 30th, 2024 is going to be here before we know it, and so we need to make sure that we've got a quantified need in front of our county so that when we get to the point when the ESSER money goes away, that we can continue to pay our teacher supplements at 12%. And the difference between the 10.5% that's working in the county's budget and the 12% that we are paying is just under $1.8 million. So you'll see I asterisked this because we are funding that next year with our ESSER money, but I want to make sure that we keep it in front of us and in front of our county in the spirit of full transparency. This is going to be a funding need when we get to the end of 2023-2024. So I'll say more about that in just a second. The next item is we are projecting right now an increase in enrollment, which is great news for Cabarrus County Schools, and that is after a couple of years where our enrollment was flat to declining as a result of the pandemic. Not unique to our district, but we experienced just the same. So we are projecting an increase in our ADM, which will generate the need for additional teachers, and we will want to pay those additional teachers the 12% supplement. So this is the cost of being able to fund the 12% supplement for our new teachers. The next couple of line items, two line items relate to the our district's share of both retirement cost and healthcare cost, which have skyrocketed in the past couple of years, probably the last 7 or 8 years, to be honest with you. These are percentages of pay that we have to fund to ensure that the retirement plan is well funded in our state, and then also our share of healthcare costs for our associates. We are very blessed because we have a very strong retirement plan and state health care plan in the state of North Carolina. But in order to keep it strong and beneficial for our employees, our district and every other district has to do their fair share of the funding. And that fair share, by the way, is set by the Department of Public Instruction. So we don't know what those rates are yet for 2022-2023. So we looked back at what the increases have been in the most recent years, and we just assumed the same level of increases for 2022-2023. Of course, we will modify that if needed, but we needed to put a request in to make sure we could continue to fund those district share of costs for our locally funded employees. For the technology expansion budget is a bit dynamic, even as we navigated through the budget committee process, and that's because we have a new chief technology officer, Ben Allred. He and I share the same passion that we need to probably step back at this point and redefine a more deliberate and inclusive technology strategy that covers all the student-facing technology and then all the non-student-facing technology so that we can be more deliberate in our technology decisions. So he and I are still talking about whether or not this is what we would want to put in front of the county, because we don't have a defined technology strategy yet at this point, or an updated, refreshed technology strategy. And I personally believe that without that strategy, it's very difficult to defend individual asks. So we will report back to the board. We've been putting our heads together recently to try to figure out how to go about doing that. And before we get to the point where I ask you to adopt this budget, I'll provide some additional information. These are all great initiatives. We're just not sure that they advance our work holistically and strategically because we don't have an updated strategy against which to vet them. So looking forward to and have appreciated the partnership with Ben, and more to come in that regard. From an operational expansion perspective, you'll see our number one request, and these are ranked in the order that was summarized by our budget committee. The number one request is almost $1.9 million of the total $2.8 million operational expansion request that relates to hiring more permanent substitute teachers. Not a surprise, because as we were compiling this information, particularly from our schools and the school advisory teams, that was when we were at the height of absences, and substitute teachers and coverage in our classrooms was very, very challenging. And so it's there. We acknowledged it. We had lots of great conversation around that at the budget committee level, and it is our number one request from an operational expansion perspective. I won't go through all of these. I will mention number 5. That is $400,000 that would be to help us build a infrastructure between our specialized instructional support personnel, so our counselors, our social workers, our psychologists, that we have a high and increased need for now that we are seeing so many mental health issues in our district, as are all school districts in our state. And so we want to make sure that we're equipped to best meet those needs of our students. And they're broad, and they are not biased towards certain populations. They are imminent across our district. And so we have district office directors that lead that work, and then we have school level resources that execute that work. And we need some infrastructure in between, because what's happening is our district office folks are triaging issues and then actually addressing issues, and we just don't have enough staff to take on what is a growing and challenging need in our school district. So that's what the $400,000 is. So that is our operational expansion budget. Again, it totals right at $2.8 million, with the big cost related to a request for more permanent substitutes to ensure we have quality coverage when our teachers are absent. And then finally, from an expansion budget perspective, this is for our facilities and maintenance department operational needs. And as our facilities age, we have to do more repair and maintenance work to them. And so we have quantified a need for the upcoming school year of right at $1.3 million in additional funding to help us keep our facilities safe and effective and productive for our students and staff. And that is the only request we have from FMD going into the next school year, but it's a critically important need. And we'll talk a little bit more how this relates to our capital outlay request in just a little bit. So we've talked about all the operating expenses, both from a continuation and an expansion perspective. Now we're going to talk about capital. And you all have approved this 10-year capital plan that outlines our current priorities with regard to capital needs over the next 10 years. And there are 12 of them. Number one is right in front of us, and that's the construction of the new R. Brown McAllister School. Number 12 is way far in the future. So for purposes of this budget committee's work for 2022-2023, we are only talking about the first 5. And each of them has a different level of need in the 2022-2023 budget. We have a huge request as it relates to our new R. Brown McAllister School. We have a lot less requests as it relates to the Opportunity School work that's outlined on this plan. So just for putting that in perspective, we will be asking something around the first 5 projects for the upcoming school year, and then the projects behind that will fall in line according to their timeline. So the 10-year capital plan is sort of our overarching vision for our facilities into the future. Here's how we manage this as a district. At the top of this graphic is our new construction needs, and so those 5 projects that we just talked about, R. Brown McAllister, North Cabarrus High School, purchasing land for a Southern High School, Coltrane Webb, and Opportunity School, they have a total project cost associated with those projects of $211.5 million. Now, we don't need all of that in 22-23, but we just want to put in front of the county, we want to put in front of ourselves the total cost of those projects. In the middle section, those are all of our deferred maintenance or specifically identified capital needs that are not construction related. And we have 2 different buckets of deferred maintenance capital needs, if you will. We have our high ticket dollar items, which are greater than $500,000. And then we have equally important but not quite as expensive deferred maintenance FMD capital projects that are $25,000 to $499,999, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the final bucket at the bottom of this graphic is any capital needs that we have that are not related to facilities and maintenance department. So activity buses, furniture and fixtures, things that don't necessarily have to do with our building and facility infrastructure. So this is our greater than $500,000 list, and it is long, and so I will not go through it page by page, and certainly not item by item. It is very, very good that we continue to present this level of detail to you, and also to our county, because as our facilities age, and if we don't get enough funding to do what we need to do to repair and maintain them, this list grows longer and longer. And in fact, it has grown year over year. And these are high dollar items that include things like roof replacements, HVAC replacements, high dollar items, and you'll see it listed several times as you look through these lists on your own time. You'll see the need for roof replacements at multiple schools, the need for HVAC replacements at multiple schools. So you'll see some common themes that won't seem surprising to you, and needs that we have at several schools within our district. So this is several pages long. That entire page is HVAC replacements and roof replacements. Very similar, you'll see some auditorium renovations, some general renovations at school level, a lot of athletic opportunities, whether it's fields or field houses. You'll see a couple pop up in that regard. And this adds up to a very big number. Now, it sounds odd that we would call this a request for 2022-2023, because while it would be awesome if we were funded at the $342.7 million, that's not going to happen. But again, if we don't keep this list in front of ourselves and in front of our county, it's impossible to know what we're going to need to do over a long period of time to make sure that we have facilities that meet the needs of our students and are safe and productive for our students and our staff. And so I think that this has generated some great conversations with our county. They understand it, they appreciate it, and there are bold things that can be done in counties and communities that happen all the time across our state, whether it's a bond referendum or something super dramatic like a change in the construct underneath our property tax valuations and rates. But these, without visibility to the need, it's hard for the county to address the challenges that are in front of us as it relates to these high ticket items. We're going to move now to the group of deferred maintenance capital needs that fall into that $25,000 to $499,999. This has been coined over the years as the top 36 list, and you'll see a lot of fire alarm system replacements. Again, some common needs across several schools. This one is not as long in nature. You'll see some gym floor replacement opportunities at some of our schools, but this is 36 different projects, albeit some are the same project at multiple schools. That totals $7 million. So last year, this year, which is sort of last year, I'm in the middle of 2 years right now, but 2021, 2022, this list totaled about, let's say, John, $6 million last year, and we were fully funded. And so we've expressed a hope and an expectation that the same will happen. This helps us make a large dent in some of our most important projects at school level. Finally, from a capital perspective, we have a request for $1.7 million as it relates to non-facilities and maintenance needs. Again, these would be mostly vehicles, furniture, and fixtures inside of our facilities, anything that's not categorized as facilities and maintenance managed. And you'll see there aren't any huge items. It totals $1.7 million. They're very important to making sure that we are able to serve our students, whether it's transporting them or making sure they have updated and modern equipment that allow them to be engaged and interested in school. And this list adds to $1.7 million. This is just a summary of everything that I just shared with you from a capital perspective, and so you'll see in total it's $351.5 million. Again, That's a large number, but one that we need to keep in front of us year after year and put in front of the county so that we are super transparent about what we need and what is in front of us and how we can start to take big chunks off of this list and making sure that our facilities are updated and adequate for our students and our staff. Just so you know, if you didn't know and haven't stumbled across it while you were on our website, all of the documents that we talked about as a budget committee and that we summarized as a budget committee are available on our website. And so these are the links to those pages on our website. So if you're interested and you want to see the volume of information that the budget committee has poured over and through, it is all there for you to see. So the pages that we didn't look at each individual item on, we did a lot of deep diving into many of those items as a budget committee. So they did the heavy lifting as you asked them to make sure that they understood the justifications for each of our capital projects and all of our operating expense ask as well, and had the healthy debate and conversation around prioritizing this budget request. But everything that you ever wanted to know about the budget committee process for the upcoming school year is available and posted to our website. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm more than happy to bring back to next week's discussion any additional information that you need or want to supplement, hopefully, a decision to adopt this budget on April the 11th. Again, we want to make sure that we give you ample time to hear, think about, process, read, review, ask questions, and get information back in front of you so that you'll feel confident about the local budget recommendation and adopting it on the 11th, which will be right before we go to the county commissioners with the official request.
So before I open the floor up for discussion, I know that was a lot of information, both for us and the viewing audience. We have two board members that actually sit on the budget committee, so I'd like to hear from both of you first, and then we'll do a round table. And Ms. Adcock, I'll start with you.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It was really great to be on the budget committee this year. It was my first year, so I learned a lot, asked a lot of questions. I think going forward, knowing that we have kind of this unknown about, what is, how much things are going to cost moving forward. Food, gas, all the prices of things, if they continue this way, are we looking at possibly even having to add additional monies to that? Is that conversations that you're having?
Beyond what we asked for from an inflationary placeholder, if you will, no, but we are having, daily those conversations as they impact us right now, not even yet, into the future. So I imagine that that's going to be an ongoing conversation. And everybody's experiencing it, right? It's not unique to us, which makes it challenging because all of the agencies that our county funds are experiencing the same increases in cost. So I think all we can do in that regard is be super transparent about what we're experiencing and find our way through it alongside the county.
Okay, thank you. I don't really have any other questions. I just want to say thank you to you and the committee and everyone that was involved in this. It is a lot of work, takes a lot of time, and I just appreciate being a part of it.
Ms. Sandage.
Well, you came in here and you just hit the ground running, and I truly appreciate that. I would not have known if I didn't know that this was your first year here based on the presentation. I just want to thank you for letting me be a part of that group as well. I will echo what Denise has said. There is a lot of time that's put into making sure we include everything that we need to in this budget. I really appreciate the part about looking forward and not just basing what this is on what we're spending right now, but the possibility for growth and the possibility for additional expenditures as well. The question, well, not question, but the comment that I wanted to make was, can you spell my name right?
Oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am, and I apologize for that.
No,
We'll
you're
take
good.
care of that.
You're good. But thank you, and thank you to the whole team that has taken also their time to put into this work and made it a process that was actually user-friendly.
Thank you.
Mr. Walter?
Yeah, also welcome and throw you into the fire with all this. I think the one thing you said that I like as well is this is an inclusive process, and we get input from a lot of different people, and I think that's really critical to having a successful school system and developing a successful budget. But essentially, this is still a list of needs. I mean, it really isn't a budget. We're not expecting the county to actually fund us. This presentation is, I mean, it's a presentation, the ask, is that what it is?
It will be, and we'll actually summarize next Monday exactly how we'll present it to the county. And so yes, sir. I mean, we're going to ask for what we believe we need, because if we don't ask, we're certain not to get it. And they were a part of this process too. And so I've stayed very connected with Rodney Harris along the way as a member of the budget committee, but also in a lot of conversations outside of the budget committee around summarizing an inflation provision and highlighting the gap in funding around our teacher supplement. So we've had lots of conversations, and he's been very supportive of making sure that we articulate our need, knowing, I mean, they have limited revenue as well.
Right, we just have to realize that just because it's in the budget is not going to mean it gets funded.
Absolutely, but we won't get it if we don't lay it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do need a list of needs. What we don't have in here is, you know, what is the amount? So you've got, like on your first couple slides, you have percentages, but you don't have any dollar amounts in there.
Right, and so that's our budget in total, not just our local budget.
Right, but
That
I
was
mean,
just
the county's got to fund a budget in total too,
Right.
and in
Right, well,
transparency, you want to know what the whole
Right.
amount is, and we're not showing that here in our presentation.
Right, which we won't get the state information until probably
Right, but this is
June, yeah.
a local ask. This isn't
Right,
a
and
state, this
I
isn't
can
a state
provide
ask.
those
This is-
dollar amounts, absolutely. I'll bring those
But just
next
for,
week.
so we know, I mean, it's at $80 million, is it $100 million? What exactly are we asking the county to fund for us? I think that kind of needs to be out there.
Yep.
Yeah, we can-
That will be part of my presentation next week, and just for reference, for 2021, 2022, our local operating expense budget is $82.6 million, and our local capital outlay budget is $43.4. So in total, about $126 million from our local government.
That's why it's important to have them on our
But
budget.
we'll
committee
have
so
that,
they
we'll
can-
roll that forward
But those
into the
are
ask.
huge, those are huge numbers for our county and for our citizens
Yes,
to
sir.
realize that, hey, this is, taxes pay for a big portion of this. So,
Yes, sir.
You had a slide towards the back, or triangle slide, that you had deferred maintenance capital needs.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things said 406 million, but then your summary page had only 155 million. Where was the other 50 million? So it's a page,
It's
slide 22 and
in,
slide 36.
Right, so that $406 million is the, and I don't have the breakout, I can bring that next week, is the total cost of the greater than $500,000 and the $25,000 to $499,999. But I can bring the
summary on page
breakdown.
slide 36, so that's different.
Sorry. Right here?
No, keep going. That one.
Right here.
So is that not supposed to add up, or is that what's missing?
That is, well, there's a bigger, that doesn't include the construction. So I can add the construction and make that complete.
So the construction, I thought our construction was more than that,
Yeah,
but okay.
at the top. But I can reconcile that for you next week.
I just want to clear it. So if
Absolutely,
I
understand.
don't understand it correctly, and I'm a board member, I'm sure the
Understand.
public doesn't quite understand that number either. So
Yep, I will absolutely make sure and reconcile that.
we have a budget policy, 8100, and it says that we're going to provide the budget online, so the public can review this. How do they find that? Can we?
It's that last page, right before the questions page in the presentation.
So that was a summary of the actual minutes of what was discussed in the committees. Is there actual,
Yeah,
Where-
when the budget's adopted, we will post it as well,
I think it's before we adopt it. I think it's before, I mean, how are they going to comment at a public hearing if they don't see what?
which will be next week, I think, right, Chairman?
So they're going to need that information to
Yeah, the Monday
review
the
so they
4th.
can comment to us on it.
Right, there'll be a
Right.
presentation posted, just like this one was for this week.
So this, again, I'm just trying to make it simple and try to people understand. We have a public hearing next week, so that's where the opportunity for our staff, for our members of the public to say, look at our budget and say, hey, you know, I don't think that this should be funded, or this should be a higher priority, or you're not considering this, or whatever. How can they see what we're presenting to comment on, or otherwise they're just kind of giving us their ideas without actually commenting on what we've just presented?
Right. Well, it will definitely be posted to board docs, and we can, to be honest with you, I don't know if we post it specifically on the website outside of board docs, but we certainly can, just like we have all the other information.
All right, well, the policy says on the same day the budget is submitted to the board, which I guess is today, the superintendent will file a copy of it in his office where it will remain available for the public inspection until the budget resolution is adopted.
So again, to the policy, it says to be filed in my office. You're asking for it to be online. There will be one in my office, and I have no problem posting it online either. So that's not a big deal. With the policy 8100 you're referring, I understand what you're asking, but it just says it'll be filed in a copy in my office. So I hear you. We will make sure that we abide by that and post it online.
I mean, otherwise we're asking people to make an appointment.
Well, that's what the policy does say. In defense of the question that you're asking and posing, the policy doesn't say online. The policy says the superintendent will file a copy in his or her office where it will remain available for public inspection until the budget resolution is adopted.
So is that the process we want to do?
Well, that's what your policy says. So you're asking to have it online. We can put it online. That's not a problem. So I think we put it on board docs. It'll, as the policy says, the copy will be in my office, and we have no problem putting that online either under the business section of the committee, the budget committee
So the public
documents.
can.
Sure, we can do that, but that doesn't say it in the policy. The policy says it should be filed in my office. I just want to be clear on that.
Right, and I'm sure you're
So
doing
there-
that too, right?
Absolutely. That's what the policy says we're following. But
We're
your
just trying to make
request,
it more convenient for the public to see.
no, I understand, but if I hear you correctly, what I hear you saying is that you're asking us to put it online, which we can do.
Absolutely.
That's
I
not a
want it
problem.
more,
So
as convenient as we can possibly be for the public to read.
clear, and that'll be
That's
under the
all.
budget committee documents.
Right, just,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
just like
That's
we'll
all.
put it alongside the rest of the documents.
Okay. Under and again, I think you said there's a like, or at least in the past we've had a page per each one of the asks for the continuation and the expansion. Is that still occurring this year?
A page?
There was a sheet that would talk to you about what your history was, more justification about each of the budget items that was asked.
And the continuation?
I thought it was both. Maybe it wasn't. It's not both.
I didn't. I didn't.
Well,
see
I know
that.
you're not. I'm just
but-
saying.
But I mean, I can certainly create one. I have a massive workbook.
I'm not
that
asking you to go
summarizes
do
all
more and more. I'm just
that. No, I don't
asking
mind. Whatever you need to feel comfortable.
to make sure that we're explaining exactly what we're asking for, what the background and what the justification is. Because we asked for, I think, some more positions. We didn't say how many positions.
Oh, on the expansion. Right.
Expansion, yes. So I'm just saying, just make it clear, that's all. The operational software, we weren't specific. Today, we mentioned it verbally, we didn't say where you can go to find out that detail, that 190,000.
Okay, we'll make sure, because that is all posted on the website
Okay.
through the budget committee
that's-
documents. Yep. Yes, sir.
That's good, as long as they're detailed, it kind of
Yep.
shows instead of general, say, 190,000 without an explanation. Those
So,
are,
Mr. Walter, I think I need to make a clarification here, because what I think you're asking for is already going to be there, because what came out of the last budget committee is what's coming to us tonight. So
Yes, ma'am.
they are going to see this. They just have to look at it where she's got it listed online. So what we're seeing is going to be there. So it actuality is being posted.
all right, well, I just want to make it clear, again,
Yeah.
tonight,
I just don't think-
tonight
I
that
think that's
detail is not
redundant.
available.
Right.
Tonight, you're telling us to go to a website, and it's going to be there. So if it's there, that's good. I just want to make sure that we follow through with that.
Right.
That's really all I had. Thank
Right,
you.
and just to clarify, I hear exactly what you're asking, and so we'll make sure we have everything on there that fully informs everybody around what we're presenting to the board for adoption on April 11th. But all the detail that the budget committee went through for every line item on the expansion budget is already posted on the website, in the same cadence that we have every
Yeah,
year.
what I
but-
saw was a slide presentation.
On board docs?
No, on the website last I checked it, it
Okay.
was a slide presentation. on
I'll
website.
double check that, but I
Reviewed
looked
for
at
the
it last
meeting,
week and it was there, but I will make sure to make sure we didn't have a issue.
Okay,
I will double check. I
Thank you.
understand completely what you're asking.
that's it.
Okay, Mr. Furr?
I just want to let you know I appreciate the work you guys do. I'm trying to behave, but you know, we had this information last Thursday, and I wish some of us would ask questions before we get here instead of putting you guys on the spot. Like I said, I think sometimes we treat you guys unfairly when it comes to some of this. I don't know the purpose of it, but it's not necessary, and thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you.
Ms. Blackwell?
I'll just echo the same thing. Thank you. I know this is a lot of work. It's a tremendous amount of work for you and for the committee. So for all of you that are part of the budget committee, truly appreciate everything that you've done up to this point. So thank you.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes, again, I would like to thank you, and again, I know it's kind of jumping in, and I know it's probably been a lot of it kind of new to you, and I do appreciate it. I am going to go over the expansion part of it, and if I do have any additional questions, because I'm looking at it now, and I may have some, and I will get back to you
Please.
before the end of the week
Okay.
if I do have some, but I do want to look at some of those details, seeing how many of, some of the little details on that. And again, if I do have some additional questions, I'll get back to you by the end of the week
Okay,
on that. The only question, you said that like the permanent subs, some things have changed on that. Could you tell me how many you were going to ask for, or you may not know that?
I don't know off the top
I'll
of my
just
head.
ask you the questions.
And I'll make sure and respond publicly in my presentation next Monday. So anybody that has any follow-up questions, just send them to me and I'll make sure and make those responses a part of what I share next week.
Okay, but I'll just ask you the questions before the end of the week
Perfect.
and everything.
Perfect.
But thank you again, and thank your staff. You've done an outstanding job, and I really appreciate it.
So board members, just to recap, just so that we are all clear, this was the presentation. And this is the night that you use getting the information, gathering your questions, emailing them out so that she knows what to bring next Monday night for clarification. If you need additional information, what she stated in the very beginning is this document, okay, which is your second to last page, shows all of the information that should be really pretty much in those meeting minutes, and actually what was presented to us tonight. All the slides should be there. So maybe Mr. Walt, that'll answer your question a little bit more, and for the viewing audience as well. The next meeting is Monday, April the 4th, and we want to make sure that the general public knows that the public hearing portion will start at 5 p.m., so that's the notice that will go out. And then our work session and budget discussion will begin at the regularly scheduled time at 6 p.m. Do you have anything for us?
No, that's all.
Would
A lot of
Dr.
information.
Speaking? Okay, great. Dr. Committee.
Yeah, just before we close, Mrs. Carpenter, to answer your question, I believe to clarify, you were asking a question regarding the permanent substitute positions, which totals $1.8 million, actually $1.872 million. That is one for every building, and the round figure comes about $43,500 per position, okay? And I would echo Mrs. Grimsley, our chairwoman's statement. We welcome your laser focus on going over this in great detail, and we want your questions. What I would ask, respective your time and ours, is to go home, take a look at this, take a look at some of the documents that we've sent you. If you have questions, I would encourage you to please don't wait until April 4th till we come back to the meeting. Send those questions to Ms. Herndon in an email, copy myself on them, and make sure that we get those questions to her early, because we are more than happy to go back and look at any information that you need. That way we can answer a lot of questions prior to the meeting, but also we can come to the meeting and begin the meeting by going over those questions with those answers and those replies, so we have clarification on it. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to please reach out to us ahead of time so that we're not jockeying on our feet here to try and answer some questions that we don't have information right in front of us. Over $400 million budget, as you know, many of you have been through this many times. There's a lot of moving parts to this. So the more information the more you can question us up front, the easier it is for us to get those answers back to you. And again, I want to be real clear, we welcome the questions. We want the oversight. We want you to dig in and ask those questions. That's why we're here. So there's no opposition to that at all. We welcome that and want that. That's a good sign of a team working together. And then before I close, I would like to echo the thoughts that Mrs. Herndon spoke earlier to some of the people that were on this committee, and I thank everyone for participating on that. Board members, employees, community members, everyone that was involved. I think they did an outstanding job. But I want to be real clear about this. Mrs. Herndon, I see the work that you do on a daily basis. I see the dedication. I see the concern. The thing that has impressed me from day one is you're always asking, how does this tie back to the classroom for kids? I've been at this a long time. I've never heard a CFO talk to me about that. I'm not saying it's not done, but that is incredibly impressive that you're always focused on the child and the kids and how it goes back to the classroom. Your work is outstanding. I really appreciate your attention to detail and the fact that you really are focused on kids. So I thank you for your input. I thank you for the work that you're doing, and I would encourage you to keep doing it because I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I thank you for that. And again, to the board, I thank you for your participation. Again, we welcome those questions. We want them. The more you question us, the more we can answer us, the better this process gets, and the better we're communicating to everyone. And to Mr. Walters' point, we want to make sure the community understands this clearly. So thank everyone for their participation this evening.
And I also will echo everyone's sentiments. It was a fantastic process. I enjoyed getting on and off as I was available, listening to the conversation and the comments that were made, and you did a fantastic job, especially for someone that's come in new and had to really hit the ground running with the time frame that you came in at. So thank you very much. So one more time, just to recap for the viewing audience, tonight was the budget presentation. It's for board members and the general public to hear what has been presented. Any details that board members and or the general public need, make sure you go to the website under budget committee documents. All of the meetings are listed, the meeting minutes are there, all the presentations, the slides, pretty much anything you would need to see. And then if you have questions or you would like to sign up to address the board at the public hearing, email boardclerk@cabarrus.k12.nc.us. And again, that's boardclerk@cabarrus.k12.nc.us. And that public hearing will start at 5 p.m. next Monday, April the 4th, and then the work session and the budget discussion will be finished at 6 p.m. And with that, that concludes our business for the night, and I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Blackwell, a second by Mr. Furr. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those against? Thank you. And with that, we will say good night to our viewing audience. We will see you Monday, April the 4th.